Okay, let's get to the articles, Brian. I know you had quite a bit to say. There's a couple from Rolling Stone. There's one from the Alternative Press and a couple from the Los Angeles Times. We already talked about the MTV one. I'm assuming you don't have anything else from that one. No. It was pretty short. Okay, so go ahead.
The first thing I had was like really, really, I felt it like quite a bit. And it reminded me of myself in 2011 or 12. You know what I mean? De La Roca says the tour aims to take its inherently political message straight to the nation's conservative heartland. We're not going to play to the mainstream. We're going to hijack it, says De La Roca, parking his Explorer on a hill leading up to Griffith Park Observatory, which, by the way, Griffith Park, I was actually there a couple weeks ago. West Coast Bryan went up to the Griffith Park Observatory, so I can actually picture exactly where he's going.
Yep.
Yeah, the tour is going to incorporate everything which the rich, wealthy classes in America fear and despise. Each of the 20,000 people in the audience will be reminded of their independent political power. And like that little piece right there, I could have said that. Like that is definitely, I could have said that in 2011. You could just change that to Brian Quinby, and I'll bet you I said it. You might even be able to find articles in Jacobin where I said something like that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you're exactly. I had also highlighted that spot. This is, by the way, from an article that came out September 4th, 1997 by Matt Hendrickson. The title is Rage Against the Machine's Revolution Rock.
It also felt like there wasn't, I mean, I don't know at all, but there was not much of a mainstream leftist movement at that time. You know, I always go back to the war in Iraq, where like there were record amounts of people protesting against this, but the news didn't touch it. This was just like, there was a protest today, now on to the next news. And like I understand like this idea, like, because it is like the leftist dream to get in front of a bunch of people and have them say, you know what, you're right about that. We got to remember that we have individual political power so that we can overthrow the government. Like, that's what you're hoping happens when you're very young. So I'm not making fun of them. The article stuff that I read is very much like just seeing myself in a lot of the stuff. But
yeah, reading these articles is hard because on some level, there are things they say that make you that are like ostensibly kind of funny, but they're also about politics that I agree with. So it's a hard line, you know, like we've said a lot in the past, people always give us a hard time for doing like the worst faith readings of some of these quotes. But like in this case, it's even harder to do these worst faith readings because you're just like, yeah, but they're saying stuff about politics. But this one was so funny to me. Like, this is from the Los Angeles Times one, which is kind of a good example of it. This is from September 16th, 1997 by John Roos. And the headline is "Leftist Rockers Are All the Rage." And it's just a very funny like quote from Tom Morello, where he still has to like take a shot at another band. We always see this in articles, and I fucking love that there just is like always in this time, this was all the rage, no pun intended, of, you know, getting a dig in at another band. And this is Tom Morello answering the question: does performing in a county famous for its political conservatism pose any special challenges for Rage Against the Machine? Tom says, I don't know. I constantly feel like we're playing behind enemy lines. Oh, yeah. Which is very funny. I really don't think there's a homogenous whole of an audience out there, whether we're performing in Brooklyn or Irvine. Rage Against the Machine tends to bring disenfranchised folks out of the woodwork, people you might not find at a No Doubt concert. And it's like, buddy, I got some news for you. I bet there were a lot of people that both saw Rage Against the Machine and No Doubt in 1997.
I also like Brooklyn or Irvine.
Yes. Well, I think it's because they're from Irvine, right? Like Zach is originally from Irvine, I think, is the comparison. But yeah, that Brooklyn is like this leftist hub, and Irvine is this like right-wing insane place.
But just the other place. Okay, there's California and New York, and those are the two places. So I like this one piece. Zach, doesn't support some of the Wu's misogynist lyrics, particularly on tracks like The Projects from the group's new Wu-Tang Forever, but De La Roca hopes that the tour will provide a chance for his band to start a dialogue with the members of Wu-Tang about songs he feels are degrading to women. Straight up, there's got to be a more creative way to express the tension that sometimes arises between men and women than to dehumanize a woman by calling her a bitch. I totally fucking agree with that, but the reason I read that is because I picture
Zach going into Wu-Tang's dressing room and being like, "Hey guys, look, I just want to say, yeah, there's just simply no chance that conversation happened." Like, I agree with you too, Brian. Like, I 100%. I think there's no doubt. I agree with Zach. Anybody with a brain agree. Like, of course, but it's just like, yeah. Some of the pictures that they like to paint as well, even just all of the like, we're going to war, we're behind enemy lines. Yeah. It's like a lot of people are just coming to your show to mosh and rock out. I don't think all 20,000 people are going to be at the concert thinking like, God, I have the power to change the world. They're just going like, fuck, rock good. Me like rock music. Ooh, 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 ooh. Like, it's not a political statement being at a rage show necessarily.
I think when we talk about the bad faith ways, we read a lot of these articles. I think one of the things that I would say is that I do not think I agreed with pretty much everything Rage Against the Machine said in any of these articles.
Sure.
I think the thing that really fucked with me was the interviewers saying, like, some of the question, like here, by signing with a major label, however, Rage left itself open to barbs from cynics who ask why the group would align itself with an international conglomerate. Why not release its albums independently? You fucking know why. You don't like, you know what I mean? The guy doing this interview, you fucking know why they didn't do an independent album. You can't get in a fucking record store. You can't play in any venues without dealing with these companies. There's nothing you can there's nothing that any Pearl Jam tried to like kill Ticketmaster. Pearl Jam, Smashing Pumpkins. I think even Rage had a little part. Didn't happen. Didn't work. It's just like I used to say about, I'm boycotting Walmart. I don't fucking go to Walmart, but Walmart isn't going anywhere because and it's just, there's nothing you can do about it. But in every article, that is a question that they have to answer, as though they haven't read any other articles about Rage Against, like, it's in every piece. Just go back and read an article before and you'll get their answer about this major label thing. And it's just so crazy when you say, like, I want to get in front of as many people as possible. And then the person that's interviewing was like, but me thinks you are making money. So that is an interesting dichotomy here. You know, it's the stuff you need to live. You got to make that, but, I don't see how it helps you with your anti-capitalist stuff. And it was truly shocking to me because I don't think this would happen in 2023, really. How every single person is like, oh, I guess you're a socialist, but you have capitalistic tendencies. Like, fuck you, man. Like, it's perfect version. And it's like, when you think about journalists being looked at as like intellectuals and stuff like that, it really, all that is like, I see you post about socialism on an iPhone. Interesting.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, I have to function in society. I need to have a phone. Like, and even Zach he sort of tries to rail against that a little bit, where he says, one of capitalism's secret weapons is to equate freedom with the buying of products, he says. In hip-hop, people go out and buy their champagne in their mansions, and when you reinforce that principle, where people are free because they can buy products, I say, fuck that, you can keep it. I want my freedom. Those are the values that rappers Chuck D, KRS-One, and Wu-Tang hold true. However, in the same article, Zach talks about how he moved out of Irvine and into Los Feliz because people were stealing his stuff in Irvine and all that. Like, it just, at some point, unfortunately, in our society as a whole, even if you're anti-capitalist, you have to engage with capitalism on some level. There is just no way of not, unless you want to like take the millions of dollars you made off of your rock band and try to live in the woods by yourself for the rest of your life. You know, at some point you have to engage with capitalism. Like, and you're right. Like the interviewers really seem to want to try to catch them in some sort of trap. And it's like, well, I have to live. I have to be alive, you know? And then in the same, this is also from the Rolling Stone article. This is where one of the ones where they talk about how they hate each other. And I thought this was very funny. Morello claims that relations among the members of Rage are as good as they've been in 4 years. De La Roca says the relationships are often still rocky. I like the idea of the interviewer sitting down with Zach. Hey, Tom says things are in the band are going pretty good relationship wise. And Zach's like, no. The quote is, it's a tense little family and we internalize a lot. He says, we all have different thresholds for what we can deal with. What Tom may be experiencing or his perception of what's going on a lot of the times is different than mine, but it isn't something that stops us from doing the work we do. Rage don't spend much time together when they're off the road.
Yeah. Exactly. But I get it. They're not that it's you can do stuff with people you don't 100% agree with and have it work out. But these guys were actually I so unfairly put out there by the press, and sort of like even the press was trying to question whether they really believed the leftist stuff or it was a gimmick. And that to me is fucked up, man.
Totally. No, I completely agree. Then there's the great quote. This is just, I pulled it from another Rolling Stone article. Wu-Tang Clan's RZA moves on to bigger things. This is from September 4th, 1997 by Neil Strauss. And he immediately opens the interview by asking about Rage's politics, which is very funny to me. Whose idea was it to tour with Rage Against the Machine? RZA. I remember talking about it last year among those who talk, but I can't remember how it got started. They came to us and asked, and we agreed. They got talent right there. I know how they affect people, and they got hip-hop influences. Basically, Zach De La Roca raps. Are you into all of the political stuff they're into? That's why my vote was to do the concert, because of what they talk about. They talk about a lot of what we talk about. It's like De La Roca thinks Revelation or some shit is coming. See, I had read their lyrics before I listened to the album. Once I saw the lyrics, it was like, damn, we're going in the same direction. So you're into stuff like the Zapatistas cause? Say that again? They're the rebel farmers in southern Mexico that the band sings about. Okay, right. I've never heard of that. Maybe it's unfair to ask you about Rage's lyrics. I'm sure they wouldn't understand a lot of yours. Yeah. Like this, like you're just trying to gotcha RZA for not caring or knowing about the Zapatistas was insanely funny.
And it really was. Reading these articles, you post the articles, don't you?
I do. Yeah. People can go through
read
and
these articles and see. I mean, like they were just like the whole time, like these guys are fake leftists, which usually comes from other leftists.
Yes.
Not the press.
Yeah. Well, it's 1997. It's a different time, you know. They had to cut them down. So yeah. But yeah, and then this was the last one I had. This is from the Los Angeles Times. The article is called Up Against the Wall. This is the longest headline we've ever done on the show, by the way. The headline is Up Against the Wall. You want raw, unfiltered extremism? You got it. Rage Against the Machine is back with all pistons firing. The band members once thought they'd be too political for anyone to care. They were wrong. That's the headline. It's by Robert Hilburn, April 14th, 1996. And Tom has sort of a good quote with what we were talking about. You had brought it up earlier about them being a gimmick. A lot of labels contacted us, and lots of them just didn't seem to understand what we wanted to do, Morello says during the interview at Epic Records. They kept talking about the message of the music as a gimmick. They were interested in us just because there was buzz. They saw us as the latest local rock band to be hype, but Epic agreed to everything we asked, and they've followed through. By signing with a label, however, Rage left itself open to barbs from cynics who ask why the group would align itself with an international conglomerate. Why not release its albums independently? Morello nods at the question. We get asked about that all the time, but we never saw conflict as long as we maintained creative control. When you live in a capitalist society, the currency of the dissemination of information goes through capitalistic channels, and then that's where he did the quote about Chomsky being sold at Barnes & Noble. Wild stuff.
Yeah. The thing that made me sad, and he probably did say it, was that he didn't do the Marx quote about the capitalists will sell you the whatever tools you to overthrow them. I don't remember what it is, but I always love that saying. And it's like, Tom, you went to fucking Harvard and hung out with Marxists. Like that's one of the more famous Marx things.
Just drop it in, man.